We begin with a heartbreaking loss for one Metro Detroit family dealing really with an unthinkable tragedy.
Yeah, Taryn, what began as a normal day at work quickly turned violent. A mother of 6 stabbed to death at an East Point McDonald's while doing her job.
She could keep being a bully if she wants to, but that is going to catch up to her because it ain't funny at all. It ain't. Those weren't just angry words from a disgruntled employee. They were a death threat posted on Instagram Live exactly 48 hours before 26-year-old Afeni Mohammed walked into a McDonald's restaurant and stabbed her manager 15 times. The manager she was talking about? Jennifer Harris, a 39-year-old single mother of 6 children who had worked at that same McDonald's for 15 years. What you're about to see will shock you to your core. We have the actual Instagram video where Afeni laid out her murder plan for the world to see. We have witness testimony describing how she returned to that restaurant wearing a mask, armed with a kitchen knife, hunting down Jennifer like prey. Most disturbing of all, we have the confession where Afeni admitted she intended to kill Jennifer and explained exactly how she planned every single detail of this brutal attack. This isn't just another workplace dispute gone wrong. This is a calculated murder that was broadcast on social media before it happened, ignored by everyone who could have stopped it, and carried out in front of horrified customers and coworkers. Jennifer Harris was doing nothing more than her job when she sent Afeni home for poor performance. That decision cost her everything. 6 children went to bed on July 9th, 2025, with a mother who loved them more than life itself. They woke up on July 11th as orphans because their father was already incarcerated, leaving Jennifer as their only parent. Jennifer worked every single day to provide for those children, taking extra shifts, staying late, doing whatever it took to keep food on their table and a roof over their heads. The attack happened just before 8 in the morning on July 10th. Customers waiting for their morning coffee watched in horror as Afeni stabbed Jennifer repeatedly in what witnesses described as a frenzied, relentless assault. A customer with a concealed carry permit had to fire a warning shot to stop the attack, then held Afeni at gunpoint until police arrived. Jennifer was rushed to the hospital, where she later died from her injuries. Before we continue with this devastating story, I need to tell you something that's been weighing on my heart. Every week, I pour countless hours into investigating these cases, not for views or money, but because these victims deserve to have their stories told with the respect and thoroughness they deserve. Jennifer Harris was a single mother who died simply for trying to do her job. If you believe victims like Jennifer deserve justice and proper storytelling, please hit that subscribe button. It takes 1 second, costs you nothing, but means everything to ensuring these stories reach the people who need to hear them. Now, let's get justice for Jennifer. Jennifer Harris wasn't just another McDonald's manager. She was a superhero disguised in a uniform, performing miracles every single day that most people couldn't even comprehend. At 39 years old, Jennifer was raising 6 children completely alone after their father was sent to prison. 6 kids, 1 paycheck, 0 backup plan. While other people complained about their problems, Jennifer woke up every morning and made the impossible happen. She had been working at that McDonald's on 9 Mile Road in East Point for 15 years. 15 years of early mornings, late nights, difficult customers, and endless responsibility. Jennifer didn't just show up for a paycheck, though. She genuinely cared about her job, her coworkers, and providing excellent service. Her colleagues described her as someone who would give you the shirt off her back if you needed it. The heartbreaking reality was that Jennifer was carrying a financial burden that would crush most people. Supporting 6 children on a McDonald's manager's salary meant every penny counted. There were no family vacations, no shopping sprees, no luxury purchases. Every dollar Jennifer earned went toward keeping her family fed, clothed, and housed. She worked extra shifts whenever possible, stayed late to help with inventory, and never complained about the pressure. What made Jennifer special was how she balanced being both a dedicated employee and a loving mother. Her children would often come to the restaurant after school and sit quietly while she finished her shift. Coworkers remember seeing Jennifer help her kids with homework during her breaks, share her employee meal with them, and always make sure they felt loved and secure even in that workplace environment. Jennifer's daily routine was a masterclass in sacrifice and determination. She would wake up before dawn, get her children ready for school, work a full shift managing a busy restaurant, pick up her kids, help with homework, make dinner, and repeat the cycle the next day. She never had time for herself, never took breaks, never asked for help. She just kept going because her children depended on her survival. On July 10th, 2025, Jennifer started what she thought would be another normal workday. She had dealt with Afeni's poor performance and attitude problems for months, consistently documenting issues and trying to help her improve. Jennifer had no idea that sending Afeni home early that morning would trigger a violent revenge plot. She was simply doing her job as a manager, holding employees accountable for their performance and maintaining standards. The children Jennifer left behind paint a picture of a mother who was their entire world. In interviews after her death, her daughter tearfully explained, "My mama was a good person. She was the best mom anybody could ever ask for. My mama, she woke up every day and went to work for us. For us. My mama died trying to take care of us." Those words capture the tragedy perfectly. Jennifer Harris died doing exactly what she had done every day for 15 years, working to provide for her children. What makes this case even more devastating is that Jennifer's children are now completely alone, with their father incarcerated and their mother murdered. These 6 kids have lost both parents through violent circumstances. They went from having a mother who worked tirelessly to support them to having no parents at all. Jennifer's death didn't just end her life. It destroyed 6 other lives in the process. While Jennifer Harris was busy being a devoted mother and hard-working manager, Afeni Muhammad was living in a completely different reality. Her social media presence was a terrifying glimpse into the mind of someone who glorified violence, chaos, and revenge. Afeni wasn't just obsessed with horror movies. She was obsessed with Chucky, the demonic killer doll known for stabbing victims with kitchen knives. For most people, Chucky is entertainment. For Afeni, he was inspiration, a role model, and apparently a blueprint for murder. Her Instagram and TikTok accounts were filled with disturbing content that should have been massive red flags to anyone paying attention. Afeni posted videos of herself rapping about violence, creating chaotic music that sounded like someone having a mental breakdown set to a beat. In one particularly disturbing post, she rapped about feeling like her life didn't matter, comparing herself to a bird that struggles with flying, and talking about going to where the angels sing. These weren't just artistic expressions. They were cries for help mixed with threats of violence. But the most shocking revelation about Afeni's background didn't come from her social media posts. In March of 2022, just 3 years before she murdered Jennifer, Afeni had been convicted in Virginia for stabbing her boyfriend during an argument. She literally told police, "I stabbed him. Is he okay?" This wasn't a woman who lost control in a moment of passion. This was someone with a documented history of using knives to solve problems through violence. The Virginia conviction should have been the end of Afeni's access to employment opportunities, especially in customer service positions. She was sentenced to 4 years in prison, but that sentence was suspended, meaning she only served probation. The system essentially gave her a free pass for stabbing another human being. 3 years later, that same woman was hired by McDonald's and given access to kitchen knives, co-workers, and customers on a daily basis. What's even more disturbing is how Afeni behaved at work from day one. She had only been employed at McDonald's for a few months, but in that short time, she managed to become the workplace problem that everyone dreaded dealing with. Co-workers complained about her constant TikTok filming during shifts, her disrespectful attitude toward customers, and her complete disregard for basic job responsibilities. She would literally film herself dancing and lip-syncing to music while customers waited for their orders. Afeni didn't just admit to being a bad employee, she bragged about it. In her social media posts, she openly discussed how she was messing up at work on purpose, giving attitude to management, and causing problems for other employees. She treated her job like it was content creation for her social media rather than actual employment. When customers complained about her behavior, she would post about it online like it was something to be proud of. The warning signs were everywhere, but nobody connected the dots. Afeni's social media was public, filled with violent imagery, references to stabbing, obsessions with killer characters, and escalating hostility toward authority figures. Her previous stabbing conviction was a matter of public record. Her workplace behavior was getting progressively worse, and more confrontational. Every single piece of evidence pointed toward someone who was dangerous and unstable. Most shocking of all is that Afeni's hire somehow made it through whatever background check process McDonald's had in place. Either they didn't check her criminal history, they didn't review her social media presence, or they saw all the red flags and decided to hire her anyway. A woman with a stabbing conviction, public posts about violence, and an obsession with killer characters was given access to kitchen knives and put in a position where she would interact with the public daily. The failure to properly vet Afeni wasn't just negligence. It was a recipe for disaster that cost Jennifer Harris her life. Every warning sign was there, documented, and available for anyone who cared enough to look. Instead, those warnings were ignored, and a dangerous individual was placed in a position where she could act on her violent fantasies, with tragic consequences. On July 8, 2025, Afeni Muhammad did something that would later become the most damning piece of evidence against her. She went live on Instagram for nearly 7 minutes, creating what prosecutors would call a public confession to premeditated murder. This wasn't just venting about work problems. This was a detailed threat against Jennifer Harris that laid out exactly what was going to happen 2 days later. The video started with Afeni explaining that she had been sent home early from work for the second day in a row by the same person, Jennifer Harris. But instead of taking responsibility for her poor performance, Afeni immediately launched into a vicious attack on Jennifer's character. She called Jennifer a bully, accused her of disrespecting employees, and claimed that Jennifer thought everyone was beneath her because she was a mother with children. What made this video so chilling wasn't just the anger in Afeni's voice. It was the calculated way she built her case for why Jennifer deserved what was coming. Afeni complained that Jennifer was sending her home early, which meant less money in her paycheck. She accused Jennifer of playing games, gossiping about employees, and creating negative energy in the workplace. Every grievance she listed was actually Jennifer doing her job as a manager, but Afeni presented them as personal attacks. The most terrifying part of the video came when Afeni stopped complaining and started making threats. "Somebody gonna have to do something about that," she said, staring directly into the camera. "It's not funny. It's not fair. It isn't funny at all. So, she could keep being a bully if she wants to, but that is going to catch up to her 'cause it ain't funny at all. It ain't." Those words weren't just angry ranting. They were a promise of violence that would be fulfilled exactly 48 hours later. But Afeni wasn't finished. She continued the video by sharing an even more disturbing story about Jennifer allegedly telling employees that she had broken her door in half and pulled a gun on her own children during some kind of domestic incident. Whether this story was true or fabricated, Afeni used it to paint Jennifer as an unstable person who deserved whatever was coming to her. She was literally building a public justification for murder while recording herself doing it. The 24 hours between the Instagram video and the murder were filled with more ominous social media activity. Afeni continued posting cryptic messages and memes that showed her escalating hostility. She posted things like, "Nope, not today," and laughing like it's funny. Messages that seemed innocent to casual observers, but were actually part of her psychological preparation for violence. She was documenting her mental state in real time, creating a timeline that prosecutors would later use to prove premeditation. On the morning of July 10th, Afeni made her final social media post before committing murder. It was just 2 words: "Shake my head." To anyone following her account, it seemed like another meaningless post from someone who constantly complained about everything. But those 2 words were actually Afeni's final communication before she picked up a knife and decided to end Jennifer Harris's life. What makes this timeline so important is that it proves beyond any doubt that Jennifer's murder wasn't a crime of passion or a moment of lost control. Afeni spent 48 hours planning, threatening, and psychologically preparing herself for violence. She had multiple opportunities to calm down, seek help, or choose a different path. Instead, she used those 48 hours to build her case for why Jennifer deserved to die and document her intentions for the world to see. The Instagram video also reveals something crucial about Afeni's mindset. She genuinely believed that her feelings were more important than another person's life. She was angry about being held accountable at work, so she decided that Jennifer deserved to be murdered. The disconnect between normal human emotions and Afeni's extreme response shows just how dangerous she had become and how inevitable this tragedy really was. July 10th, 2025, started like any other morning at the McDonald's on 9 Mile Road in East Point. Jennifer Harris arrived for her shift, ready to manage another busy day of serving customers and supervising employees. She had no idea that Afeni Muhammad was about to turn her workplace into a crime scene and her final day on Earth into a nightmare that would traumatize everyone who witnessed it. The confrontation between Jennifer and Afeni happened just before 8 in the morning. According to witnesses, Jennifer had to send Afeni home again for the same performance issues that had been ongoing for weeks. Afeni wasn't following procedures, was being disrespectful to customers, and was creating problems for other employees. Jennifer was simply doing her job as a manager, but for Afeni, this was the final trigger that activated her murder plan. As Afeni left the restaurant, she turned to Jennifer and said the words that would haunt everyone who heard them. "I'll be back." Those 3 words weren't just an angry threat, they were a promise of violence that Jennifer should have taken seriously. But Jennifer probably thought Afeni was just being dramatic, the way she always was when faced with consequences for her behavior. Jennifer had no way of knowing that Afeni had spent the last 48 hours preparing to kill her. Instead of going home and cooling off like a normal person would, Afeni drove to a nearby park and sat in her car, making the final decision to commit murder. This wasn't a split-second choice made in anger. This was a calculated decision made with time to think, plan, and choose differently. Afeni had every opportunity to drive away, go home, and move on with her life. Instead, she retrieved a kitchen knife from her vehicle and began preparing for the attack. The premeditation became even more obvious when Afeni returned to the McDonald's wearing a hooded mask to conceal her identity. She wasn't acting on impulse or emotion. She was executing a plan she had thought through carefully enough to bring a disguise. Afeni entered through the employee entrance, knowing exactly where to find Jennifer and how to avoid being immediately identified by security cameras. At approximately 7:50 in the morning, customers and employees inside the McDonald's witnessed something that will traumatize them for the rest of their lives. Afeni walked directly to Jennifer and began stabbing her repeatedly with the kitchen knife she had brought specifically for this purpose. Witnesses described the attack as frenzied and relentless, with Afeni stabbing Jennifer up to 15 times, while Jennifer tried desperately to defend herself. The attack was so violent and shocking that several employees ran for help, but there was nothing they could do to stop what was happening. One co-worker later said, "She started stabbing her, and I ran for help. I tried to stop her. It was no stopping her. She stabbed her everywhere." The helplessness in those words captures just how brutal and unstoppable Afeni's attack really was. What saved other potential victims was the quick thinking of a customer waiting in the drive-thru line. This man happened to be a licensed concealed carry permit holder who witnessed the attack through the restaurant windows. Without hesitation, he fired a warning shot into the air, which startled Afeni enough to stop the attack and attempt to flee the scene. His actions likely prevented Afeni from stabbing other employees or customers who were trying to help Jennifer. But this hero customer wasn't finished. When Afeni ran toward her vehicle, he got out of his car and followed her, holding her at gunpoint until police arrived. His courage and quick action ensured that Afeni couldn't escape to potentially hurt more people or destroy evidence. He literally risked his own life to make sure that Jennifer's killer faced justice for what she had done. While Afeni was being held at gunpoint in the parking lot, Jennifer was rushed to the hospital in critical condition. The 15 stab wounds had caused massive trauma, and despite the best efforts of medical professionals, Jennifer's injuries were too severe to survive. She died knowing that her 6 children would grow up without their only remaining parent, killed by someone she had tried to help become a better employee. The entire attack, from the moment Afeni entered the restaurant to her arrest in the parking lot, lasted only a few minutes. But those few minutes destroyed multiple lives forever, traumatized everyone who witnessed it, and proved that Afeni's Instagram threats hadn't been empty words. They had been a detailed preview of the murder she was planning to commit. When police arrived at the McDonald's parking lot, they found Afeni Muhammad being held at gunpoint by the heroic customer who had stopped her escape. What happened next shocked even experienced detectives, who thought they had seen everything. Instead of denying her involvement or claiming self-defense, Afeni immediately confessed to the murder and provided details that proved she had planned every aspect of Jennifer's death. During her arrest interview, Afeni told investigators exactly what she had done and why she had done it. "I intended to kill Harris," she admitted without any hesitation or remorse. She explained that after being sent home from work, she drove to a nearby park, made the decision to return and stab Jennifer, and retrieved the knife from her vehicle specifically for that purpose. This wasn't a confession extracted through hours of interrogation. This was a voluntary admission of premeditated murder. Afeni's confession included chilling details about how she had planned the attack. She admitted to wearing a hooded mask to conceal her identity, entering through the employee entrance to avoid detection, and targeting Jennifer specifically because she was angry about being disciplined at work. Every detail she provided proved that this wasn't a crime of passion, but a carefully calculated act of revenge that she had thought through completely. What made Afeni's confession even more damaging was her complete lack of remorse or understanding about what she had done. She talked about murdering Jennifer like she was describing a business transaction, showing no emotion about ending another person's life or destroying 6 children's futures. Her casual attitude about committing murder revealed someone who was either completely detached from reality or simply didn't care about the consequences of her actions. But the most shocking revelation came when prosecutors discovered Afeni's criminal history from Virginia. In March of 2022, just 3 years before she murdered Jennifer, Afeni had pleaded guilty to unlawful wounding after stabbing her boyfriend during an argument. When police arrived at that crime scene, Afeni had asked them, "I stabbed him. Is he okay?" The similarity between her reaction to both stabbings was terrifying and showed a clear pattern of using knives to resolve conflicts. The Virginia conviction should have prevented Afeni from ever being hired by McDonald's, but somehow she slipped through whatever background check system they had in place. She had been sentenced to 4 years in prison for that stabbing, but the sentence was suspended, meaning she only served probation instead of actual jail time. If the justice system had properly punished her for the first stabbing, Jennifer Harris would still be alive today. The legal proceedings in Jennifer's murder case were delayed for months, while Afeni's defense team requested competency evaluations to determine if she understood the charges against her and could assist in her own defense. This is a common delay tactic used by defense attorneys when they have no other options, but it forced Jennifer's family to wait even longer for justice while Afeni underwent psychological testing. During the competency evaluation process, mental health professionals examined Afeni to determine if she understood the legal process, knew the difference between right and wrong, and could work with her attorneys to prepare a defense. These evaluations can take months to complete and often delay trials significantly, which is exactly what happened in this case. In October of 2025, the competency evaluation results finally came back, and Afeni was found competent to stand trial. This meant that she understood the charges against her, knew that she was facing life in prison without parole, and was mentally capable of participating in her own defense. The finding cleared the way for the case to move forward to trial, where Jennifer's family would finally get their day in court. Afeni has been charged with first-degree premeditated murder, which carries a mandatory sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole in Michigan. She's also facing charges for carrying a dangerous weapon with unlawful intent, which adds an additional 5 years to her potential sentence. With her confession, the Instagram video evidence, and multiple eyewitnesses, prosecutors have what they consider to be an ironclad case against her. Her bond was set at $25 million cash, which effectively means she will remain in jail until her trial begins. The judge also imposed strict conditions that would apply if she somehow managed to post bond, including GPS monitoring, daily reporting to community corrections, no contact with Jennifer's family, and staying away from the McDonald's where she committed the murder. The murder of Jennifer Harris wasn't just a tragic crime. It was a preventable tragedy that happened because multiple systems failed at every level. From the moment Afeni Muhammad walked into that McDonald's for a job interview to the morning she walked back in with a knife, there were countless opportunities to identify her as a threat and protect Jennifer's life. Instead, Every single warning sign was ignored, overlooked, or dismissed until it was too late. The hiring process at this McDonald's location was either non-existent or completely inadequate. Afeni had a felony conviction for stabbing another person just 3 years earlier. Yet somehow she was hired for a position that gave her access to kitchen knives and required her to interact with customers and coworkers daily. Either McDonald's didn't run a proper background check, their background check system was flawed, or they saw her criminal history and decided to hire her anyway. Most major employers today require comprehensive background checks that include criminal history, previous employment verification, and even social media screening. If McDonald's had bothered to look at Afeni's public Instagram and TikTok accounts during the hiring process, they would have seen someone obsessed with violence, glorifying killer characters, and posting content that showed clear signs of instability. Her social media presence alone should have disqualified her from any customer-facing position. The failure to properly screen Afeni becomes even more inexcusable when you consider that she was applying for a food service position where she would have access to knives, hot oil, and other potentially dangerous equipment. Restaurant managers have a responsibility to ensure that their employees won't pose a threat to customers, coworkers, or themselves. Hiring someone with a stabbing conviction to work in a kitchen isn't just negligent, it's reckless endangerment. Even after Afeni was hired, her behavior should have triggered immediate intervention from management. Coworkers complained about her filming TikTok videos during work hours, giving attitude to customers, and deliberately performing poorly to frustrate management. These weren't minor performance issues. They were signs of someone who had no respect for authority and was actively trying to create conflict in the workplace. The escalation pattern was obvious to anyone paying attention. Afeni started with passive-aggressive behavior, moved to open defiance of management instructions, then began posting threatening content on social media about her workplace conflicts. Each step in this escalation should have prompted a more serious response from management, including potential termination and documentation of threatening behavior. Jennifer Harris was essentially left to manage a dangerous employee without proper support or protection from her employer. She was expected to discipline someone with a history of violence, document their poor performance, and maintain workplace standards while being threatened on social media. McDonald's corporate policies apparently didn't include protocols for dealing with employees who made public threats against management or coworkers. The social media threat assessment failure was perhaps the most critical missed opportunity. Afeni's Instagram Live video on July 8th wasn't just venting about work problems. It was a detailed threat against Jennifer's life posted publicly for anyone to see. If McDonald's had social media monitoring policies, or if coworkers had reported the threatening content, Jennifer's murder could have been prevented. Modern workplace violence prevention requires employers to take social media threats seriously and respond appropriately. This includes immediate suspension of threatening employees, law enforcement notification when threats are made, and temporary protection measures for targeted individuals. None of these protocols appear to have been followed in Jennifer's case, leaving her completely vulnerable to Afeni's planned attack. The criminal justice system also failed Jennifer by not properly punishing Afeni's first stabbing offense. A suspended sentence for stabbing another person sends the message that knife violence isn't serious enough to warrant actual jail time. If Afeni had served her full 4-year sentence in Virginia, she would still have been in prison when Jennifer was murdered, and Jennifer would be alive today. Background check systems need to be improved to catch people like Afeni before they can access employment opportunities that put others at risk. Social media screening should be standard practice for any position involving public interaction. Workplace violence prevention training should be mandatory for all managers. And the justice system needs to take knife violence seriously enough to impose sentences that actually protect the public from repeat offenders. Every one of these failures contributed to Jennifer Harris's death and could have been prevented with proper policies, procedures, and accountability. 6 children are now orphaned because multiple systems designed to protect people from violence failed completely, allowing a dangerous individual to access both employment and weapons while planning murder in plain sight. Jennifer Harris left behind 6 children who are now facing a reality that no child should ever have to endure. With their father already incarcerated and their mother brutally murdered, these kids went from having one struggling parent to having no parents at all in a single morning. The eldest daughter, speaking through tears in a television interview, captured the devastating impact perfectly when she said, "My mama died trying to take care of us. She died. We only got our aunties and my pastor now. My mama is gone." The financial impact on these children is catastrophic. Jennifer was their sole provider, working every available shift to keep food on the table and a roof over their heads. Now they're completely dependent on extended family members and community support to survive. A GoFundMe campaign was launched to help with immediate expenses, but no amount of donated money can replace a mother's love or provide the stability these children desperately need. What makes their situation even more heartbreaking is how much they understood about their mother's sacrifice. In interviews, Jennifer's children talked about how she would work extra hours to make sure they had what they needed, how she would share her employee meals with them when they visited the restaurant, and how she never complained about the pressure of supporting 6 kids alone. They knew their mother was a hero, and now they have to grow up without her. The community response has been overwhelming, with local churches, businesses, and individuals stepping up to help Jennifer's family during this impossible time. Divine Restoration Ministries in Detroit partnered with the family to coordinate support, and even the McDonald's franchise owner committed to helping ensure the children aren't left with financial burdens. But community support can't bring back their mother or undo the trauma of losing her so violently. Jennifer's legacy extends far beyond her role as a mother and employee. For 15 years, she represented everything good about hardworking Americans who do whatever it takes to provide for their families. She showed up every day, treated people with respect, and built relationships with coworkers and customers who genuinely cared about her. Her death wasn't just a personal tragedy. It was a loss for everyone whose life she touched. The McDonald's restaurant where Jennifer was murdered remained closed for several days after the attack, and when it reopened, nothing was the same. Employees who witnessed the stabbing are dealing with trauma that will affect them for years. Customers who saw the attack or its aftermath are struggling to process what they experienced. The entire community has been shaken by the realization that workplace violence can happen anywhere, anytime, to anyone. As I finish telling Jennifer's story, I'm looking at the subscriber count, and I have to be completely honest with you. It breaks my heart. Here's a woman who worked 15 years, raised 6 children alone, and was brutally murdered for simply doing her job. Yet only a fraction of you watching will subscribe to ensure stories, like hers, continue to be told with the respect and thoroughness they deserve. If you truly cared about Jennifer and victims like her, subscribing would be automatic. For those of you who won't subscribe, I genuinely want to understand what's holding you back. Is it that you don't think these stories matter enough to warrant your support? Is it that you consume true crime content for entertainment, but don't want to commit to supporting the channels that provide it? Or is it something else entirely? Please help me understand in the comments, because I'm struggling to comprehend how someone can watch a story about a murdered mother and not feel compelled to do the absolute minimum to support the work. And for those who do subscribe, thank you for being part of the solution. Thank you for understanding that behind every true crime story is a real person whose life mattered, whose death deserves justice, and whose story needs to be told properly. Jennifer Harris worked every day for 15 years to provide for her children. The least we can do is hit a button to ensure her story reaches the people who need to hear it. Jennifer's story matters because she matters. Her children matter. The lessons we can learn from this preventable tragedy matter. Don't let her death be meaningless by walking away without taking action. Subscribe, share this video, and help ensure that Jennifer Harris is remembered not just as a victim, but as a hero who deserved so much better than the system that failed to protect her.